Okay, before I start today's Batocera and Nintendo Switch setup guide, if you like what you see today, hit notifications, subscribe and like so you don't miss upcoming retro emulation content here on my channel, just Jamie. That means you'll get notified every time I release a new setup guide, and it really helps out my channel too. So we're doing Batocera today and Nintendo Switch, so it's a little bit twiddly, but I'm going to get you through this. So first of all, what I've done is added the necessary files to its external drive. Now in my Switch games folder, I've got a few games here. We got Sonic Superstars, which is NSP format, which works just fine. We also got Super Mario Bros. Wonder and XCI file extension or format that works fine. And we also got Super Mario Odyssey again in .nsp. So those two file extensions work fine. We're also going to need keys. So we got prods.keys and we got title.keys. And finally, we're going to need firmware. Here's what the firmware files look like. So now that I've got these put onto external drive, I'm going to turn off the laptop and boot up Batocera. Okay then, so once we're inside the Batocera, what we're going to do is press the F1 key. And that's going to bring us into this screen here. So next thing we're going to do is go to applications, which you can find on the left hand panel. And from here, I'm going to just double left click on the little icon with a computer screen monitor here. This is Xterm. This is going to open up a terminal. If I just double left click on this one, you're going to then see a terminal screen. Okay, so within this terminal screen, what we're going to do is type curl, that's C-U-R-L, space, hyphen, capital L. And what I'm going to do as I'm typing this out, in case you can't see this, I'm going to put this on screen now so you know exactly what I'm typing just here. So curl space underscore L space switch dot Batocera dot pro, another space, and we need to get a straight line. So the way I'm doing this is holding down the shift key with the hashtag key, and that's going to generate one of those lines. So I'm going to just show you the keys exactly which I'm using. So that's the shift key whilst holding down the hashtag, and that's going to generate that straight line for us. Space, bash, then I'm going to press enter. This is then going to start installing the Switch emulator, which is Ryujinx. As we can see now, you're going to start seeing it installing, and it says please wait, so just give this a couple of minutes. Okay, so once that's finished doing this thing, what we're going to do next then to exit out of this terminal is just type in exit and then press enter, and that's going to bring us back here. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is go down to the ROMs folder, and within the ROMs folder you're going to find a Switch folder, and everything's in alphabetical order just there, so you shouldn't have an issue finding that Switch folder. So if we go in there, there's actually an info.txt. If we open this one up, it will tell you just here which ROM file extensions are accepted. It says .xci, .nsp, .nsz or .nsc. So what we're going to do is just go to File and Quit. Now at this point, I've just connected my external drive with some Switch games on it. What we're going to do is go to that drive, and my Switch games are in a folder here, it just says Switch games. I've got a few games here. We got .nsp and we've got one in .xci. So what I'm going to do is right click after highlighting those, go down to copy, go back into the ROMs folder and into that Switch folder that I've just shown you. And if I right click here and just go down to paste and left click on paste, it's then going to start pasting in my Switch games from my external hard drive. Now, just bear in mind, this can take a little time depending how many games you've got. Okay, so once your Switch games have copied over into the ROM Switch folder, what we're going to do is look at keys and product keys. So, in my external drive, in my keys folder, I've got prod.keys and title.keys. What I'm going to do is also highlight both of these by left clicking and hover over both files, right click, copy. This time we're going to go into the share folder, into the BIOS folder, and right at the end you're going to find Switch. If you then right click in here and left click on paste, that's our product and title keys now put into Batocera. Okay, so next up we also need to add firmware. So again, I'm going to go to my external drive. I've got a firmware folder here for Switch, And again, what I'm going to do is Control and press A, and that's going to highlight all of my firmware files. If I just right click on any one of these and left click on copy, this time I'm going to go to the BIOS folder on the left hand side, go over to Switch, and I'm going to go into the firmware folder, which is here, right click and left click on paste, and we're just going to wait for this to paste into that folder. Okay, so once your firmware files is copied into that folder, what we're going to do next is go to the left hand panel just here, go to applications, and just here we're going to find Ryujinx. What we're going to do is actually go to the Ryujinx config, double left click on this one. Okay, so the first thing I've seen just here is, do you want to update Ryujinx to the latest version? So I'm just going to left click on yes on this so everything's up to date. So it's going to say downloading, update, extracting, update, adding new files. Do you want to restart Ryujinx now? Just press yes on that, so left click yes. Okie doke, so we're now in Ryujinx and we can't see any games yet, so what we're going to do is go up to the options button at the top. If we then go down to settings, just left click on settings just there, and we're going to see game directories. Now there's nothing here, so what we need to do is link this up to where our games are. So if I go to add, so what I'm going to do is just go down to share, and from share I'm going to find a ROMs folder, and this is all of our folders for ROMs for Batocera. So I'm going to just scroll down and I'm going to find Switch just here. If I left click on Switch and select, and here we go, we can now see game directories, which has got the correct directory. So I'm going to go down to apply, which is in the bottom right hand side, and OK. And here we go, so we now got our games imported inside of Ryujinx in Batocera. Next thing I need to do is add the firmware. So I'm going to go to Tools, Install Firmware, install a firmware from a directory. So left click on this one. Again, I'm going to go to Share, I'm going to go to BIOS, I'm going to go down to Switch, and I'm going to left click on the firmware folder and left click on Select. Install firmware, system version 18.0.0 will be installed. Do you want to continue? Yes. Okay, so just after a few seconds it will say system version 18.0.0 successfully installed. Just left click on OK and everything should be good to go. So what we're going to do then is just go to File, Exit, and so we're going to exit out of this entirely. So again, we're going to go to File and down to Close Window. Okay, so you're going to find, if we scroll through Batocera, there's no Switch at all. What we actually need to do is refresh Batocera. So I'm going to open up main menu and I'm pressing my spacebar to do this. If you're using a controller, then just press the start button. What I'm going to do is go down to game settings, update game list, and yes. Okay, so we can now see Nintendo Switch. If I go inside of this folder, here's the games. Now it's quite unlikely a couple of these are going to scrape any artwork, but we're going to try. So open up main menu, down to scraper, and just make sure under scraper settings you put all your details in for screen scraper. Go down to systems included, and from here just make sure Nintendo Switch is actually selected. If we go to back and scrape now, top right hand side of the screen you should then see scraping. In my case, scraping 1 out of 3. Scraping finish, update, so we're going to go to game settings, update game list, and yes. And here we go, it's actually downloaded the artwork for each one of these. Now it doesn't look too good at the moment, so what I'm going to do is come back out into the main emulation station of Batocera screen, and what I'm going to do is go down to user interface settings, theme configuration. If I go into game list view style, I'm going to just change this over to game carousel. If I come out of here and go back into Switch, we can now see things a little better. Okay, so if I boot up one of my games, I'm going to select Super Mario Bros. Wonder. And just remember, some of these games can take a little while to boot up, but does get there eventually. And here we go, we're now inside of Super Mario Bros. Wonder with Batocera. Now let me give you a little tip. Once you're inside of a Switch game using Ryujinx, if you find your controller doesn't work, if you press escape button on your keyboard, from here you can actually access Ryujinx options whilst you're in game. So for example, if I go to options at the top and go down to settings by left clicking, from here I've got the input option where I can go to player 1, press configure, and from here I can then select my controller by going to input device. I can go to controller type by selecting Pro Controller, Joy-Con, etc. If I then close out of here at the bottom right hand side, I can go to graphics, I can change the back end, I can upscale resolution. So currently Switch games are running at native 720p to 1080p. I can upscale to 4 times, which is 2880p. So we also got aspect ratio here. Now let me just suggest that you leave this to default, because most Switch games, if not all of them, are designed for 16:9. From here you can either use your hotkeys to exit Switch games, or we can go back to file and exit. Now we can also change settings for Switch in Batocera itself, or Emulation Station. Whilst I'm in the Nintendo Switch folder, if I open up view options, I'm actually pressing backspace on my keyboard, or you can press select on your controller, advanced system options. From here we got power mode, so by auto this is going to select high performance, which is really what you want. We got video modes just here, so you can set your screen refresh rate. If we go to decorations, heads up display, we got many different options here. We also got dot in handheld mode, so really I find personally the best resolution looks better with dots, but that's also going to eat away at your power as well of your computer. We got graphics backend. Now this runs fine for me with auto, which is obviously selecting OpenGL. If you find games don't display, try Vulkan as your graphics backend. We also got audio backends just here, and again SDL2 works fine for me. If you have any sound issues, use OpenAL. We got VSync. Now I always suggest putting VSync to on. This reduces screen tear in your games. Anastrophic filtering, this isn't going to take much away from your CPU or GPU. What this is actually going to do is define textures in the game, so you can put that up to 16 times. We got resolution scale just here, which I just showed you a minute ago, but obviously we can actually do this through Batocera. Now personally, if you can get this to 2 times 1440p 216p, you know, it's going to look a lot better than the native, and that's the great thing of emulation, is that you've got the ability to upscale how games look. We got aspect ratio just here. By auto, this is actually looking like it's selecting 4:3. I'm just going to make sure that's on 16:9. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is just very briefly show you how to add DLC or updates to your games. So easiest way to do this is press F1 in Batocera, and what we're going to do is go to applications, and we're going to open up Ryujinx from here. So Ryujinx config. So if I want to add DLC or updates to my games, I'm going to just right click on one of my games just here. So for example, Super Mario Odyssey. If I go down to manage title updates, left click on this one, it's going to say no update. So I'm actually going to go to the bottom left hand side and left click on add. And just here is then a case of finding your updates, double left clicking on it and then installing it from there. If I just cancel out of here for now, and this goes for DLC. So what we're going to do is right click on the game, manage DLC, and it's just a case of just like updating, going to add, and then locating where your DLC is. Obviously just double left clicking it, that will then install your DLC. And that's it then for today's Batocera and Nintendo Switch setup guide. So if you like what you see today, hit notifications, subscribe and like so you don't miss upcoming retro emulation content here on my channel, just Jamie. Just remember, I got a whole playlist full of Batocera goodness. I'll leave that in my comments section pinned, so that will take you directly to the Batocera playlist. And just remember, I cover a whole wide range of different front end setup guides as well as standalone emulation setup guides. Remember, I'm also on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. So feel free to join me on any of those. Anyways, until next time, stay retro.